What's up, YouTube? On this episode of Coddiwomple Overland, we're going to be going to the North Carolina Lighthouses. Coddiwomple Overland is brought to you in part by Overland Vehicle Systems, One Stop Overland, and Faster Freight. Last year we spent the week at Cape Lookout. This year for our beach trip we wanted to do something a little bit different. We wanted to see all of the lighthouses along North Carolina, and we wanted to stay at a different location each night. Our first stop on our way to the Outer Banks was at Jordan Lake in central North Carolina. The first night we stayed at the Poplar Point Campground at Jordan Lake State Park, and this would kind of set the stage for the whole trip. This trip was going to be a little different than our normal overlanding trips. It was going to be quite a bit more structured, as we had to time out our ferry times and things like that to be able to get where we wanted to be. So most of our stops was going to be at campgrounds or known locations such as this. The Poplar Point Campground is one of just several campgrounds around Lake Jordan State Park. It's one of the nicest state parks that we have ever stayed at. A lot of room, the campsites are really nice, the water is beautiful. We just wish the weather had cooperated with us a little bit better. This is a place we're definitely going to come back and visit again. We've been watching the forecast and knew that there was a chance of rain, especially through the earlier part of the week that we were going to be gone. However, every time a new forecast came out, the rain chances increased. But we didn't let that dampen our spirits. One of the other things that was really neat to see was the amount of blue herons and other birds that were in the area.
It's got that same look to him, like when you walk in a bad neighborhood, but you're too far in. Little fish over there.
After watching the wildlife show, it was a long day of driving, so we all went to bed early and then we woke up to this. It would rain like this throughout the night and into the morning. We left camp pretty quick that morning as we all wanted to escape the rain. Since we were doing the tourist thing this time, we did stop for some boiled peanuts in middle North Carolina. Our first lighthouse stop of the day was the Roanoke River Lighthouse and Maritime Museum, located in Plymouth, North Carolina. This is an exact replica of one of 4 lighthouses that covered the Roanoke Inlet. We were only able to view it from the outside as it was closed for the day.
See a whole lot of old wooden boats.
Then it was on to the next Roanoke River Lighthouse in Edenton, North Carolina. As you can tell by the radar, the rain was starting to pick up and it was about to catch us. This lighthouse is also an exact replica of an 1886 lighthouse that would have been on the Roanoke River. We were hoping to be able to view this one inside today too, but it was also closed. After exploring the lighthouses of the inlet, it was time to make our way to the Outer Banks. The closer we got to the ocean, the more intense and steady the rain became. Our first stop on the Outer Banks was in the area of Duck at the Currituck Lighthouse. The Currituck Lighthouse is the northernmost lighthouse of the Outer Banks. It was first lit in 1875 and is the only one that retained its original brick color.
fried oyster
This is one of only 2 Outer Banks lighthouses that you can actually climb to the top of. But that wasn't going to happen today because they were closed because of the thunderstorm. After we left Currituck, we made our way back down the coast on the semi-flooded streets towards our next lighthouse, and that would be the Bodie Lighthouse. As we made it to the Bodie Lighthouse, we were hoping we were there just in time to be able to get a tour of this one. This was the second one that you were able to climb. And again, due to the thunderstorms, we were only able to view it from the outside. Construction on the Bodie Lighthouse was completed in 1872. It stands 156 feet tall, but Sam said he really didn't think it was that high. Just out from the lighthouse, there was a boardwalk that led you out to an overlook to the wetlands of the sand dunes here. This marshy area was home to these blue claw crabs. After we left the Bodie Lighthouse, we hit a beach access. This was one of a few different places that you could get on the beach with your vehicle by permit only. After checking out the Ocean Pursuit shipwreck and a stroll along the beach, we made our way on toward the Hatteras Lighthouse. We made it to the Hatteras Lighthouse right at the edge of dark. This was actually a perfect time to get here. Not only could we see the magnificent structure that this is, but we could also see the beams of light reaching out to the ships at sea. By the time we left the lighthouse, we set up camp at the Frisco Campground in the dark. There wasn't much video to be taken that night. We just went to sleep. That night we endured relentless storms again. The forecast for the next day and night was continued rain and even higher winds. The initial plan for this day was to ferry hop over to Cedar Island and then go to the North Core Island to camp for the night. But we decided, because of the weather that was coming, we was going to cancel going to the North Core Island and go inland just a little bit to try to get away from the weather. We caught our first ferry at 7 o'clock in the morning from Hatteras to Ocracoke. The original plan for this trip was to be a sunrise trip over the Sound. Instead, we hung out in the lounge where we could stay dry. As we made it to Ocracoke Island, it continued to rain. But the rain didn't keep us from being in full tourist mode as we stopped and checked out the Ocracoke horses. Our first stop on Ocracoke Island was to check out the lighthouse. This lighthouse is the second oldest one along the North Carolina shore, as it was built in 1798. While it's fairly short at 75 feet tall, it can still be seen over 15 nautical miles away. We didn't have any breakfast during our early morning teardown of camp, so we decided to hit this taco truck for some breakfast burritos. Our next ferry will be the longest one of the day. At 2.5 hours, it goes from Ocracoke Island to Cedar Island. Once we made it back to land, we decided to go farther inland in hopes for a drier and nicer campsite. We found our way back to the familiar area of the Croatan National Forest for an epic night of camping. The next morning, waking up dry, refreshed, and rejuvenated, we decided to go back to our original plan to see all of the rest of the lighthouses. We made our way back to the coastline around Surf City, and that's where we'd continue on down the coast. Overnight, Morgan and Connor from One Stop Overland made the 12-hour or so journey all the way from western Kentucky to the coast of North Carolina to join us for the rest of our adventure. We went ahead and had lunch while we waited on the ferry. And after that, a few of us figured out what fire ants were all about. This was our last ferry of the trip. It was from Southport to Fort Fisher. On this ferry, you can see the Price Creek Lighthouse. It's the only way that you can see it is it's on private property. After we got off the last ferry of the trip, we made our way towards Old Baldy and Cape Fear. The only way to get around Bald Head Island is to go over by passenger ferry and either walk, bicycle, or by golf cart. So we decided that we would just look at it from Oak Island. On the map, the road here on Oak Island goes all the way to the far end, and it looks like you would have a pretty good viewpoint of Old Baldy from there. Well, apparently you can't go out that far. After realizing we couldn't get a closer look at Old Baldy, we decided to go back to the Cape Fear Lighthouse. While checking out the newest lighthouse along the North Carolina coast, we decided to play in the sand and along the beach one more time. After leaving the coast for the final time, we made it to the Lumber River Campground. This is where Deb made another one of her amazing shrimp boils. While we waited on the shrimp boil to finish, we all just hung around camp and relaxed.
Pick them out, made a forward. It's like everything's at the bottom.
This incredible dinner tasted even better than it looked.
I think they. That's good.
We hope you've enjoyed this adventure so far. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And stay tuned for part 2 when we go to Uwharrie National Forest and try to find Andy and Barney.